My other question on this, and you'd mentioned it earlier, why did it take law enforcement so long to investigate this? And I know someone just said he disappeared, but I mean, you said your wife disappeared tomorrow. eh, You'd have authorities at your house. They'd be looking for
No
something.
question.
I mean,
No question.
what was there? I mean, is there something behind the scenes here that we're suspicious about? Where it's like, is there some sort of connection as to why somebody's holding them off? Is there any signs of that, like we've seen in some other cases, or is it just bad police work?
I don't think it was bad police work. They didn't know he was necessarily missing because nobody reported him missing. Like, that's the mystery of this is like how family, like, and I'm talking about Michael's family, wasn't like suspicious enough to
Yeah,
call law enforcement and be like, yo, like it is unlike my son or my brother to just fall off the face of the earth.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like that's the part of it that I just had a really hard time like comprehending like why like you said if anybody in my family, I don't care if I haven't talked to them in 10 years.
yeah,
I find out that they've just vanished, and especially if it's a sibling. Even
yeah,
if I'm no longer talking with my sibling and there's some kind of issue with a relationship, like why in the world wouldn't somebody be questioning it?
yeah,
Like especially if it was like my sibling or my kid, I'd be like, "What do you mean you just fell off the face of the earth? That makes no sense. Like, I want to talk to you. Pick up the phone. I'm calling you. Or
yes,
where are you at? I'm coming to see you." It's like that doesn't happen for 3 years until this buddy who hears something from his ex-girlfriend who's still friends with Laurie Shaver, who said something to the effect that Michael no longer walks this earth. That was finally the thing that got somebody to call in and say, "Hey, do a wellness check." So, and then it took 2 years because that's what I'm saying. It's not an open and shut case in terms
no.
of the evidence. Common sense tells us what happened here, but common sense, you need more in a trial
Yeah.
to convict somebody
I
in
mean,
order to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
is it a battered spouse thing? Where I mean, that sounds like that could be playing part of it.
It
And
could have been.
honestly, it's not that. I mean, in today's world where people have access to weapons and they have them out there in dumb places.
It was a combative relationship.
Yeah,
There was testimony and evidence that there were injunctions put into place.
yeah,
There was violence in the relationship,
yeah,
but I mean, she elected not to do that. And when she came up with the "I didn't shoot him" story, my daughter did it. You know what I'm saying? It's like that battered spouse syndrome thing wasn't a thing here because
yeah. Well, it
she
makes
was she wasn't claiming it was self defense. She's claiming she didn't shoot him. That's what I'm saying. It gets
yeah.
really
It
weird.
weird. Yeah, it's
That
like it's wondering. I'm wondering if like they're injecting more to the story to make it more. I don't know, to take some of the blame off of the daughter. Like that's why the boyfriend's in there because their thought process is we don't want the daughter. I don't know.
it's weird.
It's very weird. I mean, I could see it actually happening in a sort of way. My thought would be, did the rest of the family know that that's what happened, and everybody, including his family, just agree to say, "Look, he was an abuser. Your granddaughter shot him." And we'd like to just say he ran away because it might be probable that he's a shitty person and might do something like that. And
I,
everybody's just
it,
like
I mean,
let's
that's
protect the
essentially what
girl.
the defense is arguing.
Yeah, yeah,
That Lori was shielding her daughter,
yeah.
but like, how does that factor in with the Jeremy Townsend issue, though?
That's what
You
I
know,
wonder, like,
like
to put too much on the scale, almost like what I wonder about with like the Karen Reed trial, where it's like you didn't need to put more shit on the scale over here to weigh this down. There's enough evidence to point to what actually happened. Uh,
exactly,
that's what I'm.
exactly.
Oh wow. Well, this is
Yeah,
wow. This is going to
it's
be a fascinating one. I
it's
mean,
an interesting one,
it
man.
sounds like it could end. Obviously, you watched it much closer than I did, but it just kind of has a feeling of like, is this going to be a hung jury? Is it that
All
confusing
it
to
takes
the?
is one. All
Yeah,
it takes is one. I mean, we'll know. We'll know pretty quickly. Like I know, I have a friend who's sitting there in court, and she said that the jury asked for a whiteboard right away. So, I mean, they're going to go back there and they're going to
yeah.
deliberate, which is what we want jurors to
Yes,
do.
of course.
Like we've talked about this before. Like we're always like, oh yeah, they're going to come back in an hour. Well, we don't want that really.
No.
We want people to carefully consider all the facts and all the evidence. We want them to work it out back there. We want them to actually deliberate. And, I mean, I think this is a weird enough case to where just the discussion itself, once they start chatting about it, is going to be a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
There's bound to be one devil's advocate back there, who's like, but what about this?
Yeah.
Like the defense attorney is who, he sounded like Hank Hill from King of the Hill. He's like, well,
I
Bobby,
heard that.
he's like, what would Mr. Wiggs do? So so like one juror is going to say, what would Mr. Wiggs do back there? When kind of
Yeah.
questioning the evidence, like that they're missing a lot of evidence. They don't have key components to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Laurie Shaver committed this crime. Yes, they found the body on the property, but that doesn't mean that she killed him. I mean,
The Mr. Wiggs is good. I got to say,
yeah,
I watched a little bit of her testimony yesterday after we were texting, and I was going to go with Dr. Phil. It sounded like Dr. Phil was exam. Because I'm like, why is Dr.
he
Phil
was the
examining?
original call. He was the original call from the chat. They had him pegged as Dr. Phil. He's like the love child of Dr. Phil, Mr. Garrison from South Park, and of course Hank Hill from King of the Hill.
I can see that.
He's the love child of all three of them, I think.
Wow, that must have been an
Yeah.
interesting night at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, right. Very weird. Very weird.
Wow. Well, okay. So what's your prediction and how this is going to end up based on everything you saw?
Because of the kind of the defining evidence for me really is the fact that they're stuck on this two gunshot thing
Yeah.
happen, and the evidence does not support that. I think that in and of itself is enough for them to come back with the guilty verdict. I think to me that was the key piece of evidence.
They should
And
have
I
even
was
introduced
frankly
it.
right. Like I was surprised that the state didn't really hammer that home. Like they finally brought it up in the rebuttal closing that there simply aren't two gunshot wounds.
Yeah.
It would be one thing if the child had testified, well, I shot him in the tummy, and then they just never like he's all bones when they recover him, so they wouldn't see that wound. So
Sure.
and then they're covered for one gunshot, but the stories are that he was shot twice in the head and there's only one wound.
Why would you even go with that story if you know it
I
can be
don't
this?
know.
That's the
I
yeah.
don't. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, another one, another unsolved mystery, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
Robert Stack in here. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.